Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positivity here on the show, and with me right now, I've got a very special guest. You are in for a treat here today. He is one of the most legendary professional wrestlers of all time, WWE Hall of Famer, Jake the Snake Roberts. Welcome, Jake, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you.
Yes. Let's talk about your childhood and upbringing. Doing some research on your career. You had a real rough upbringing growing up. Talk about that.
Yeah, I had a real tough time coming out of the chute, man. Just I was my mother and father split when I was 5, and I had a brother and sister, but I wasn't around them. They were in different places. I was with my grandparents, and my grandparents raised me the best they could. You know, they did with what they could. They didn't have a whole lot, but they gave me plenty of love. But my grandfather was a hopeless alcoholic. He drank every day. Most of the time, whenever I'd come home from school, he'd be passed out in the chair, and made it tough for me to bring kids over to play or to visit. So that didn't happen. I was always embarrassed and ashamed of that. And I was a bedwetter up until the time I was about 11. And the sheets would be hung outside. And another thing to shame me and embarrass me. But like I said, they did the best they could.
Yeah.
Granny. But I stayed with them until my grandmother got sick. She got sick one week and she was dead the next week.
Horrible.
I was 12 years old. And I went and lived with my father for a short time. And that's when I was molested by my stepmother. Physically abused, mentally abused, all sorts of games being played. It was tough.
Yeah. It seems like it was very traumatic. And
It,
I know that you came from a wrestling family. You got like family members that have been in the business for so long. Do you remember your first exposure to wrestling?
oh yeah, my dad was wrestling. That was my first exposure to it.
When you're on the road, or seeing professional wrestling in person live, it can be very exciting. When you're a fan, you get hooked right away. And did you decide you wanted to go on the business on your own, or did your father want you to pursue it?
No, he didn't want me in wrestling at all.
Really?
No, no, he discouraged me.
What was it about wrestling that he just was like, I don't want you doing this?
He just told me I didn't have the guts for it.
Hmm.
That he was ashamed of me, and I'd never amount to anything.
To you, Jake, what was it about wrestling that made you go, wow, I could do this. I love this.
I did it out of hate. Um, when my father, when I graduated from high school and I went down to see him to tell him that I graduated, nice of you to show up, Dad, but he didn't. And I went down to visit him, telling him that I was going to go to college. I wanted to be an architect. That's what I wanted to be.
Hmm.
And he just told me that he didn't have anything for me. He wasn't going to help me, and that I needed to man up. And I went to a wrestling show and drank too many beers, and my foggy mind decided if I wanted to make my dad proud of me, and that's all I wanted was for him to say he was proud of me, that I needed to get in the ring and beat up a wrestler. I was almost 18, and I was a pretty big guy. And I got in the ring and challenged the guy, and he beat the shit out of me for 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
He stretched me in every which way he could go, and made me piss myself by choking me out. But I crawled back to the locker room. That's when my father told me that I was gutless and he was ashamed of me and I'd never amount to anything.
It's hard, that's really rough to
Yeah,
hear something like that. I mean, being embarrassed like that, terrible. It's a terrible feeling.
horrible.
And, you know, when you're talking about being stretched out by your opponent, um, it does something to you, psychologically,
It
you
does.
know. And so with you wanting to become a wrestler, tell me about like training wise. How was the training process for you? Like learning drills, or did you just learn on the road?
Learned on the road, trial and error. Not a good way to do it. But the best thing I did for myself was I refereed for about 10 months. And I learned a lot from refereeing. And that helped me tremendously. It helped me to learn timing. It helped me learn how to work a crowd, how to how to become part of it instead of just a little stick man over there who's counting 1, 2, 3. But that's the way I got started.
And you're moving up the ladder, both literally and figuratively, with the different positions, different roles, and you made your debut in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about those first few matches. You're refereeing, you're doing all these things. What was your debut like? Were
It
you
was more,
nervous?
oh, I was scared to death, scared to death, scared to the point that I would freeze up, just wouldn't move. Couldn't bend my arms, you couldn't bend my legs. I was the stick man.
You get over those fears eventually. You start putting in the work and putting the reps in. Um, I got to talk about your character, the snake.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from?
A 6 pack and a joint, basically. Riding down the road, listening to Monday Night Football. They were talking about Kenny Stabler. They called him the Snake. And I really liked Stabler. He was wild, he was crazy, he was a partier. And That was the guy I wanted to be like if I could. So Snake, at the time there was a TV show on called Dallas. I don't know if you remember it.
Mm-hmm.
The heel character on there was JR. So I already had Jake. I just needed to have a last name. So I come up with Roberts, Jake the Snake Roberts. And that's how that came to be.
Yeah, I mean, you've had an amazing career, and that character really took off running. When WWE brought you on board with that character, you brought in various snakes that
Yeah,
you called Damien. How did the actual animal get brought to television? Was that something that Vince decided, let's do this?
yeah. Vince decided to do it. I'd had the idea for some time, and Bill Watts laughed at it. He told me that we weren't doing a circus; that we were wrestling. There was no room in wrestling for a snake. Why don't he kick himself in the ass for that? But uh, Vince wanted to go with it, but there was one problem. I was terrified of snakes,
Mm.
and still am today. I'm terrified of snakes, man.
What was it about snakes that made you just afraid, frightened?
The fear of getting bit, by a poisonous snake. The pythons aren't poisonous, but they leave a hell of a mark on you.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been bit about a dozen times, and all but three times I had to have stitches. But part of it, I,
Yeah.
and it bit a couple of other guys. It bit Andre on the shoulder. He didn't even know it. Broke off two fangs in him.
Wow. I mean, I guess getting bit, would you say it's better than being slammed in the ring or being tossed around in the ring? What hurts worse?
I think the getting bit does.
Yeah.
It really messes with your mind.
Hmm. Okay. All right.
To look down and see an animal chewing on you is a frightful experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. So you've had just, as we'll talk about throughout the podcast, you've been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame and had an incredible career over your time in the business. Who have been some of your favorite opponents to work with over the years?
Oh, Ronnie Garvin, Ricky Steamboat, DiBiase. Those are some of my favorites.
Yes. I mean, getting to work with those guys, also got to work The Undertaker at WrestleMania 8.
Yeah,
What was that like?
that was easy. Easy peasy.
You're currently with AEW as well. Tell me about your experience there.
It's been wonderful, man. Just Tony Khan is a super guy, really a super guy. And I really treasure the time that I've been there. Really
Yeah.
I do. They've been so upfront, so good to me. Uh, it just blows my mind that they still want me there.
And they've got amazing talent, you know.
They got too much talent. They got way too much talent. Uh, Makes it hard to focus on anybody very long.
When you think about today's wrestling, I think it's on a high right now because there's so many companies, they're doing really, really well. When you think back, when you look at the current roster today of all the people and all the companies, who are some guys that you wish you could say, I'd love to have a good match with this person?
Randy Orton. Um, oh gosh, MJF. Cody Rhodes. Just a few.
Yeah, those are some good ones.
Yeah.
Some
No.
really good ones. Um, you know, as we're talking here, you've got such an incredible story. I want to talk about some of the stuff that you've done outside of the ring, as far
Mhm.
as charity work or things in your community that that like you've made a difference in someone's life. Is there anything that you can tell me or share with me and the listeners and viewers that are watching this podcast about something that you've done to help out in your community?
I'm all about sobriety, and I go to rehabs fairly often and speak and share my story. And it's helped a lot of people. We did the documentary, The Resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts. We did that. I can't begin to think of how many people that have contacted me and thanked me for being so open and so freely um, talking about my pain and my struggle. Because there are a lot of people out there hurting. There really are.
When you think about it, man, it's like one of the top killers,
Yeah, yeah. Drugs.
alcohol and drugs. It's no joke to see how many people we've lost to that, overdoses. Um,
Yep.
when you talk to these people, what's something that you say to them that kind of motivates them to change their life for the better?
That they can have hope again. When you're down and out and you're caught up in that weave of just going in and out of consciousness, basically because of the drugs and the alcohol, um, you lose hope, and you don't think you'll ever get it back. You'll never have another dream, but you can dream again. You can have hope again, but it starts with sobriety. You got to get sober, man. You got to get clean, and that's what I preach, man. Is no matter how many times you fail, get up and try again. Sooner or later, it works. I'm living proof of that. I went to several rehabs, you know, and four to be exact, and it didn't work. But I moved in with Diamond Dallas Page, and I got sober and clean there, and doing DDPY yoga um, brought me a lot of peace, and it also gave me hope again. Because when I started doing it, I could barely get out of a chair. I was so out of shape, 320 pounds, well, 313 pounds, I think it was. But I couldn't get down on the floor unless I just got fairly close and just threw myself on the floor. That's the only way I can get down. But after weeks of doing DDPY yoga, I got to where I could do a lot of things again, a lot. And I started noticing my body changing. And after several months, I got on the scale and realized I'd lost 30 pounds. And without dieting, you know, the first three letters of diet's not good. Die. you know, you don't want to do that.
No, no. And you really have to put in the work, just like with anything in life, you really have to put in the work to make sure you're on the right path. And DDP definitely is someone that I feel like has really helped transform so many people's lives for the better. Really.
Yeah, hundreds and thousands, man. thousands of people, man.
Yeah, it's just when you're with him, what stuff is he telling you advice that you're still like taking with you now?
I just listen, man. He's still learning. He never quits learning. He's open to learning. A lot of us get stuck in a pattern and we just hold there. But he's constantly looking for a new way, a better way, a way that gives better results. And he's finding ways to get better results.
When you're doing yoga, is
Mm.
there like a specific pose that you enjoy doing or something that you just feel at peace?
Yeah, a few moves, but it's just the overall presentation that you go through, and it just brings you to a calmness, and then from the calmness you go right into a feeling of euphoria, and once you get that euphoria cranking, man, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And, the fact that you're still with us now and you're going through this transformation and you're talking to these people and giving them the advice. I mean, that's just so important that you don't want to touch alcohol or drugs or
I
fall
don't.
into that trap because it really can be horrible, horrible road to go down.
I would never go back to it, my friend. I just the thought of it turns my stomach.
What is it about giving back and sharing your story with others that gives you joy and makes you feel good?
Well, each time I give that story out there, it gives me strength to continue, and listening to other people's story gives me strength. And you don't want to fall back into that slimy pit of crap, man, of not having any hope, not having any joy, not having any love. You just don't want to fall back into that.
It's very, like I said earlier, you have to really want to change. You have to
Oh,
really want to be at the best that you can be, both in the ring and out of the ring, because you want to be a positive influence. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast was to talk about the good aspects of the business, the good aspects of life that you can live and choose to live and make a difference. And I think you have exemplified that, living proof that you can change for the better and try to help make the world a better place.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. Jake, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. Before we go, I want to talk about your podcast, The
Yeah.
Snake Pit. How did you start that, get that up and running? What made you want to decide to do it?
Well, Diamond Dallas Page and I started the podcast together. And then after a short period of time, he bowed out and I took over. But I just enjoy it, man. We do a thing where we ask, let the fans ask the questions, and I really enjoy that segment. We do that once a month, but the rest of the time we're going from territory to territory of my career, and it's just fun reminiscing and going back over it and picking it apart a little bit, trying to understand it. But it's all good, man. We enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing it for?
A couple of years now.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's always good when you start something, people remember you, and it brings you back to the good old days of wrestling and nostalgia, and brings you back to a time where you remember watching wrestling for the first time, remember seeing Jake the Snake Roberts, hearing from him, talking about the old memories,
Yeah,
and as well as talking about some of the new ones too that you've been
absolutely.
making. Yeah, awesome. Well, Jake, thanks again so much for coming on to the show. It means a lot to me, to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find more about you on social media?
Just go to my site, man. Jake at jakethesnakeroberts.com. And you can check my schedule out there, and it'll let you know if I'm in your area. And if I'm in your area, please come out and see me.
All right. Well, Jake, thanks again, and you're more than welcome to come back.
I appreciate that. Y'all take care.
All right, take care. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.